For those of you who don't know me, my name is Robin Gibb. I'm a product owner within the Shibumi apps team, based in London, if you can tell by my accent.
Yes.
I'm going to be taking you through some modules. You've seen some of the slides earlier on highlighting the direction we're taking with modules, and so I'm going to be taking you through the governance and RAID modules before handing over to Rob, who's going to take you through the resource management one as well. So again, I think Kim showed this slide earlier. I think Mark showed this slide earlier yesterday. So the focus of all the modules that we have as part of our SPM app are covered on this slide. And as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing shortly on the governance and the RAID ones. But there are obviously other apps that we have. They're all available to everyone in this room. So we'll provide more documentation on them. We're enhancing them as some of the features that Kim talked about are released as well. So we're managing these kind of as separate entities as these modules, but also as part of our SPM app, which kind of Mark demoed as well yesterday. So first one I'm going to be talking around is governance. So obviously a very important differentiator using Shibumi, especially if you've come from the world of Excel. It's very difficult to do any sort of governance in Excel, things like stage gating and stuff like that. So the focus on this is very much around stage gating. Again, typically, and it was interesting seeing some of the customer solutions yesterday, I tend to think everything has 5 stages personally. I know somebody had 6 stages, I think. I remember yesterday. In my history at Shibumi, I remember building something in South Africa. I think we had 10 stages. Madness, won't do that again. So 5 stages, typically the norm. And as part of that, typically 4 gates in between those stages that are typically having some sort of approval to move on to each of those stages. And then just to round up, there's quite often 3 names. Stage gating, which I understand might be a trademark, so we might have to not use that anymore. In Europe, we also use the term degree of implementation, or DOI. And again, another traditional name is phase gate progress as well. So again, various different names, but all of these typically, as we just said, 5 stages, 4 gates are in there. Let's explore that in a little bit more detail. Again, our standard out-of-the-box app and the module consists of these 5 stages. So things start off as an idea, as we've talked about. That might be just a high-level estimate, for example, with some basic charter information, who might be, the business sponsor and things like that. Once you go through then a gate to approve that idea, that might be approved by somebody, say, kind of head of transformation. I think we heard some of those examples yesterday, how people are approving ideas. You then go into a planning stage, which is really adding more detail around how you're going to achieve that benefit, maybe a breakdown of what sort of financial metrics, whether it's OPEX or CAPEX, et cetera, are going to be put into that plan. You'll also start putting in those activities or milestones that you want to achieve as part of that. And again, you then submit it to a gate to be approved. This time it might be looking up across maybe head of finance, head of HR, if there's an HR element to it. Could be various different people within the organization that might need to approve it at that stage 2. At which point you then in execute, where you're actually delivering those activities and milestones, you're completing them. You're then starting to feed in actuals potentially, or forecast values, or latest estimate, various different terms some of our clients will use. So then at the end of stage 3, you then go through, again, another set of gates. It might be less people now, because we're going into that realize mode. Again, that's where maybe finance are really getting involved to really see, whether the benefits are actually realized, they're showing up in the SAP systems. You can kind of reconcile them against what you said you were going to do, et cetera. So, there's typically a period of realization of those benefits. It could be, they're lagging indicators. It might take 6 months or a year or something like that for benefits to actually show up after that. So again, that's why we have stage 4. Some people may not be doing that. But again, especially our longer term strategic programs, they tend to have those lagging indicators. And then stage 5 is the final stage. It's really business as usual. That initiative is finished. It's delivering a set of activity or a set of benefits consistently, etc. Again, as part of the configuration, we may have those dynamic approvals, again, looking to see who might be the finance lead for a particular business unit or a particular work stream. We want to track things like the approval history. So typically we're saying who actually approved it, when they approved it, what were the values potentially when they approved it. We may also want to have rollback capabilities if for some reason somebody rejects it at a certain stage, or you might need to roll it back to an earlier stage. Maybe you've reprioritized the initiatives you're tracking. You might want to roll back those approvals and things like that. So some consideration needs to be done to that. The approvals and rejections, again, some people might want to put comments back, why they're rejecting it. Have they not put in the right information at stage 2, for example? Again, notifications and emails are always important as part of this process to be able to do that. And also things like delegation as well. So quite often we're making sure that there's more than one role that's been assigned to any of these items in a particular stage as well. Again, I know we talked about some of this. This is capability we have now. This is using the And then, relating to stage gates, there may be a particular set of visualizations you might want to use. I know some of the advisory firms have specific charts that they might show to show how the value of all these initiatives is tracking through the progress. The whole idea is that hopefully over the period of time, more and more stuff is getting to your completed stage. In this case, it's, I think, the dark green on this particular chart. And you've got more stuff coming into the pipeline. And again, as hopefully we're seeing the gap to target, the undefined bit, the light gray is showing today on the screen. So yeah, that's the bit, to see, right, perhaps we need more stuff in the pipeline. We need more ideas coming in. As we've talked about today, Shibumi is a highly flexible platform, so there are potentially options around how you might want to do governance around the roles at the different levels, whether it's things like again, reminders. So if somebody hasn't approved things, we can either send them reminder notifications, or perhaps we offer some dashboards that show items that need approving. The whole reject and rollback reason. So again, do we need to kind of undo some of these approvals when we're rolling things back, and potentially other data. And again, one of the things we've seen a lot is applying kind of some of the editability rules within Shibumi. So for example, when you're at stage 2, you put your plan values in. At that point, when you've got approval, that data's locked. You can no longer go change that plan. It's locked in place. And then stage 3, you're then putting in the actuals. So delegation, so with a large client in Europe where we've got delegated roles. So again, and the different personas for that as well, again, is a common requirement at that high level, at that program level where you're doing things. Snapshotting data, again, quite a lot of implementations we've done. We've snapshotted the values into metrics when we go through each gate, so we can start doing kind of we might not do assumptions, we might do actions. Those actions might be program level actions like steer codes, tracking the steer code dates, etc. So again, there's, we can configure various different things in here. I was going to mention about, give you some examples of a risk. I was going to talk about some of the political instability in the UK at the moment, until I heard earlier that our Prime Minister's resigned after 30 days or whatever it is. So, so that's no longer a risk, that's actually an issue. So, but that's enough about politics. We might have to make some decisions now. So the items in red are obviously how many items we've got that are open, that have a high probability and a high impact in terms of those risks. So again, various different terminology. We tend to look at, if clients are doing this at the moment, what terms they might use, whether it's impact and probability or various other terminology that might describe those different things as well. So there's a few examples of some screenshots here, how we can use some of the new capabilities we've released in the platform, the create forms now. We can offer a more interesting visualization to enter data into for these rate items. And again, use the achievement cards as well in the bottom one, alongside the matrix to be able to see how many open risks we've got, open issues, etc. Within the system. And again, they're all available to be reported in dashboards, presentations, etc. Again, there tends to be some different requirements some of our clients have come across. So I've certainly come across where people want to track a risk, both gross and net. So what it is before the risk has been mitigated versus what it would be once mitigation has been applied to that risk. Proximity as well. So is it going to happen, in the next 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months? And they might use that, and I think I say this on the next slide, the bubble chart to maybe represent that as well. Whether you do the 3x3 or the 5x5 common risk matrix, again, depending on how you want to categorize those, whether it's very high, medium, low, or very low, etc. Again, perhaps additional attributes that you're tracking. Again, a lot of larger organizations probably have, these RAID logs in place, probably in Excel. So sometimes we are copying the columns into Shibumi rather than changing kind of any of the underlying processes. We may also look at separate templates for some of these things. So things like assumptions and decisions may be, better off in a separate template rather than having those lumped in with risks and issues. It is common to have risk and issues in the same template because a risk will become an issue, as we talked about earlier as well. Decision made on those risks, etc. They're resolved, etc. They're mitigated. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, happy to take any questions about any of that content. Otherwise, let's hand over to Rob to talk about resources.